Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm really excited to be here and to listen to the amazing folks that we brought together on this call. Just wanted to introduce myself first. My name is Zvia Schoenberg, and I just joined Enactus US as its new president 1 month ago. So yesterday was my month anniversary. So this is a first for me, this Partner Summit series. I mean, I've seen the recordings and this will be up on the web as well. But my first live one. So I'm excited about that. A little bit about my background. I've done a number of things. I've been an education lawyer. I've worked with early stage ed tech companies, so education technology. I've taught entrepreneurship at the community college level. I've been a CEO of a test prep and college access company. So I've done kind of a lot of things in my career. But what really lights me up about Enactus is the experiential learning that happens every day with our students. I think that lights all of us up. It's really connecting the classroom to the real world, to what we do every day, tracking and changing and reevaluating and actually seeing tangible results. So what I like about this series is these are real world issues that real professionals are talking about. And folks who are here today and folks who watch it later can really gain insights and also understand a little bit more about the professional world and roles that they may not have even know existed. Like customer retention, there's people who think about that as their jobs every day. So that's kind of cool. And I'm grateful that we're all taking the time to do this together. So looking forward to that. A little bit about what to expect. We're going to have a couple of folks give a few words here before we get started with our panel. So I wanted to introduce Jim. He's with Rich Products, and he's going, he's going to say a couple of words about our relationship together. So Jim, nice to meet you for the first time live. I'd love to give you a couple of minutes.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. This is certainly an honor and a privilege to be able to sponsor this series. As was mentioned, this is a great opportunity for all of us to hear real world issues that we're dealing with in the business community. So I certainly thank the participants and thank those that are willing to talk in this panel session to share. Riches is a proud sponsor of Enactus, what it means for our students, what it means for our future, and how important it is to see the work that is being done by so many at such a young age is awe-inspiring. So we are very thrilled to be a part of Enactus, very thrilled to be a sponsor of Enactus, and certainly thrilled to be a sponsor of this series. So thank you again for all that each and every one of you do, and look forward to hearing what is mentioned in the session today, which is an issue that we are all experiencing in this current environment. So thank you.
And Jim, thank you so much. And I know you're not the only one from Riches that has been involved with Enactus students, whether that be supporting students who are in school now or hiring people. There's so many levels to it. There's some people that want to go and start their own business. Great. Others are looking to join a great company. So every type of engagement from our corporate partners is respected, appreciated by us, by the students, as well as the professors. They need this too. So thank you, thank you. So next, we can move on to introducing our panelists who we have here today. So again, given that this is my first time meeting all of you, what I was planning on doing is handing the floor to Sally. She will give us a couple of minutes on her background and what she actually does. And Sally, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, and I'm thrilled to be here. As you can see on the page, I work for IRI. My main role is to oversee a center store practice. So all of my clients are CPG manufacturers, but I also do thought leadership in the industry. So I'm excited about what we're going to do today, and I'm thrilled to be on the panel.
Thank you so much, Sally. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Next up is Brad. And Brad, do you want to give a couple of words on what it is you do?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Brad, Ulrich, and similar to Sally, as you can see on the slide, I work for Walgreens drugstores. I have responsibility today for pharmacy operations and retail services, and it's just an absolute privilege and honor to be able to serve on this panel. Thanks, Jim, to you for the partnership. Thanks to Enactus for the ongoing partnership, and yeah, just thrilled to be here, and really thrilled to talk about customer retention as well, because as I think many have mentioned, really near and dear to me, and really, really important to our organization as well, and our purpose, which is really trying to deliver extraordinary healthcare across the communities we serve. So thanks again.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And again, like Walgreens has been such a big partner in on so many levels, as IRI is also important on so many levels. So there are plenty of ways to engage. And, you know, what I was thinking before we started this session is all of us think about customer retention in different ways, but we're also customers. So we know the impact of it, you know, in our day-to-day life as well as our professional life. So before I start asking you a question, just wanted to lay out why this is important and why we're doing this today. So retaining customers is, by some estimates, 10 times less expensive than acquiring new customers, right? You always hear about customer acquisition strategy, but it's equally, and if not more important, to think about the customer retention strategy, right? You don't have loyalty, it's not a given, you have to earn it. So how do you do that? How do you even think about that? How do you know what's going to trigger a customer to become a loyal customer or to even come back? There's a lot of new products. There's a lot of competition in the marketplace in any segment of the market. So existing players really need to put a lot of thought into strategy, because it's not a guarantee. There's never just one option for anything, whether it's your time, whether it's your dollars, there's going to be multiple competitors for that space. And so it's not just about direct competition, it's about indirect competition. You only have 100% of your time. You don't have any more. You can't pay any more attention than that. So if someone's competing for your attention, you know, something has to give in order for you to stay loyal to that brand or that product. So let's just start with the basics. I guess I'll call on you so you don't have to compete for who goes first. Well, let's go with Sally, since you were the first one on the slide. So first of all, why do you think that customer retention is important? And you can make this cross-sector, you can make this to your day-to-day. I'll leave it for you to decide, but I talked about the costs. How would you frame why it's important?
Well, what you said was true, but I think being able to retain customers, and for us, again, these are just so I'll be very transparent. So IRI is also a partner with Walgreens, so they leverage us to assist them in understanding what consumers are buying, where and exactly what in the store, and helping them retain their own loyalty customers as well. So we work with manufacturers and retailers across many sectors, CPG, healthcare, et cetera. With what I do specifically, so I'm going to zero back down to what I do. It is something we pride ourselves on at IRI. And in case you're like, what the heck is this company? We actually are a company that has big data, and we do consumer marketing research and advertising. So we are really, from an advertising point of view, we're doing more targeted advertising and assisting manufacturers and retailers with zeroing in on either the loyal consumers that have been buying their products, or perhaps trying to go get new ones, right? So we have a whole program around that. But as it comes to what I do every day, if we don't retain, we get it's not good. So we get measured on customer retention. Were we able to renew their contract? Because most of our business is a contract. If so, that's a good thing. If not, it's bad. So let's just talk about why it's important. Customer retention is what keeps businesses going. It's really that simple. You want customers, no matter what business you're in, you want them to enjoy the experience they have, whatever that might be, whether it's buying clothes, whether it's buying a pharmaceutical, whether it's buying a can of green beans. Whatever that might be, you want that experience to be a positive one. And when you do that, they will hopefully come back. And if they don't, you got to find out why. But being able to have that customer retention coming back over and over again is what keeps companies going. Without it, then to your point earlier, then you have to pay more money to go get a new one. Now, getting new customers is also important, but we're going to focus in on retention. But to me, it is that simple. It's what keeps companies going. It keeps us in business no matter who we are.
Great, that totally makes sense. And before we get to you, Brad, can you just give us one more glimpse into who hires IRI and what would they hire IRI for?
So manufacturers of consumer packaged goods, so anyone like that, or retailers, especially in CPG or pharmaceutical sectors, hire IRI today. I don't want to get into, we also merged with another company, but I don't want to go there. So that's who would hire us. And they hire us to provide a multiple things. So we have point of sale data. So when you check out of the register, we have that data that we've combined with what could have influenced you. Was it display, feature? Was it a digital social media? Was it that you're brand loyal, whatever it might be? We also have consumer panels that tell us not only what they bought, but why. So why did they buy it? And we can understand from a generational point of view or demographics, who are those that are your loyal customers or consumers, and what's enticing them and influencing them to purchase. And then activating against, so figuring out who they are, why they're buying, and then what do you need to do to keep them coming back? That's a lot of what we do, from exploring, understanding, and then helping with activation with the media. So hopefully that helped. I tried to do it very quickly. There's a whole lot we do, but I just tried to condense it into just a little bit.
That was super helpful. That was amazing. And now we're going to hear a really different perspective from Walgreens. So Brad, if you want to share how you think about customer retention and where that shows up.
Yeah, sure. Well, I would echo everything Sally said for sure. It's super important, especially the point about we want to retain every single customer, every patient, no doubt, and get new ones. But for purposes of today, because it's around retention, it's spot on. And I actually start from a slightly different perspective, although I think we're kind of all saying the same thing. For me, it's really about the team member. How do we retain our team member, which we then know will help really drive retaining our patients and customers, because they create relationships. And importantly, what does a relationship really want to look like? And that varies dramatically, as both you said, Zvia, as well as Sally. You might have a consumer who wants to engage for 20 minutes about nothing, the weather. You might have somebody who doesn't want to talk to you at all ever, and they want everything digital. And then, of course, everybody in between. And so for our teams to figure out how does this patient, this customer really want to engage with me is a bit tricky. And it does require a lot of data, as Sally well mentioned. And so, not only how to engage with them, but then like the preference of, is it a text? Is it an email? Is it a personal conversation? Is it a phone call? Is it an automated phone call? But then also, what do they want to know? Like what extent of information about their healthcare regimen are they really interested in? About their retail product that they might be buying out front? How are they sort of interested in that way? So the longer we can retain a customer, the more we know about them. And as a result, the more rich the relationship can be. And I think that's where it becomes very powerful, not only from a purpose perspective, but importantly, from a business and a financial perspective as well. So that's a little bit about how I think about retention. You mentioned 10 times the cost. It's at least that. I haven't looked at the data in a bit, but I know it's so expensive to churn customers and patients. And then in addition to that, it's just problematic for a lot of other reasons too. So we really want to do everything we can to retain our patient customer base. Hopefully that helps and makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, that really does. And next question, I'm going to start with you, Brad. How does customer retention show up in your corporate goals? Like, how do you set goals, and then how do you measure progress toward goals? And then the last question would be like, how do you reward team members who, are part of that? And you can tackle that from wherever you want to start.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. I'll actually start with the latter, which is around the team members and incenting them, because for me, it is a lot about the team member, as I mentioned. So we look at engagement scores and we look at team member turnover a lot. So we really try and understand at the broadest level, how are our engagement scores across the enterprise, and then all the way down to obviously singular stores and where do we have opportunities by way of exception. And it's interesting because we often see very linear correlations between team member turnover, team member engagement, and then of course, customer satisfaction or NPS, or however you want to measure the customer's level of engagement with the respective store, retailer, et cetera. And so we incent our teams based on goals specific to turnover, as I mentioned, and specific to their engagement scores. But it's interesting, right? Because we want to get the real data and we don't want it to be manipulated or influenced. And so that we've learned a lot over time. And I think we talked about maybe making some mistakes along the way. And we've made some of those on that front for sure, because people started to learn, oh, well, if I have high engagement scores, I'll get more pay. And they just kind of take the survey in a way that isn't always bringing through the authentic response, which does no one any good. So lots of learnings on that. But then importantly, how that translates to patient satisfaction and ultimately to patient retention is we also incent based on our customer satisfaction scores. And so we provide incentive bonuses as well as goals that inform your performance assessment and importantly, your overall just compensation package based on those scores and how they roll through in a respective store, district, area, et cetera. So I think it's a pretty multi-pronged approach to how we really explain the importance of customer retention and then hopefully help really explain our belief on how you can deliver against what those goals might be. And then also, very, very importantly, it's great to get data from groups like Sally's team at IRI, but others as well. And then how do you balance the data from the anecdotal feedback that you hear from our teams who are really engaging with the customers each and every day? They hear such valuable insights that sometimes it can be hard to tease out of data. So it's like this combination of looking at the data coupled with what we're hearing from our teams who are boots on the ground each and every day.
That makes a ton of sense. Can you give an example, a specific example of a failure? So you were measuring one thing, but you should have been looking at something else that just wasn't the right metric. And what happened and how you even figured that out, and then how you changed course. And I'm going to ask a similar question of Sally with her work.
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to. For me, as you think about KPIs or metrics, I would argue that we have been all over the spectrum on this. We have been, we've had too many metrics that were too complicated to understand. So if I'm a team member, I don't understand how this metric is derived or how it's calculated, there is no chance that I can really ever influence that performance because I don't understand it. So rule number one is, how do you keep it simple for everyone to understand? A failure on that front is, years ago in pharmacy, we were dispensing prescriptions and it was a quite lucrative business. The reimbursements from the payors were good. And we had a compensation model that really incented people based on the improvement in profit on a given year. And it just worked for us. It was great, and it seemed to create a lot of harmony. The challenge over the years is the way that we are paid for medications today is very different than how we might have been paid 10 years ago. And as a result, we started to build metrics around what we felt was within the control of our team members. And we just called them composite metrics, controllable metrics, however you want to think about it. Unfortunately, there was way too much engineering, way too much science. And as a result, no one understood them, as I mentioned before. And so we were not able to advance business results because no one really had a clear view into how they were assessed, how they were paid. That's important. And as a result, how they could influence the business. And so a key learning for me is, as I mentioned, it has to be simple. It has to be very easy to understand. And teams have to understand what steps they can take to ultimately deliver against a given goal or a metric. So hopefully that's helpful.
I love that. That's super clear. And we can all relate to that. I mean, even students in school, when you have a grading rubric from your teacher that's so complicated, you don't know what you're supposed to do. Like, how much is this quiz counted for? So you can look at this stuff and really apply it to your day-to-day. I think that's really helpful. So Sally, yeah, how do you look at metrics, and what's one example of a time when you got it wrong, when you thought you were measuring the right thing, but really maybe you weren't?
I'll actually do it in two parts because Brad kind of kicked off also just how to even the own employees of our firm and retaining them and the importance of that, as well as our customers. So First, as far as retaining, and especially if you're any of the students that are out there today listening, or if you downloaded it and you're watching it on demand, you're going to find that there's companies you can go and work for that you just have a job, right? Or you go into a community that provides you with opportunities that are above and beyond the job at hand, and it's more of a community. It is an experience that's a positive one, and it's those kind of that's the kind of company we have created at IRI, and we are hoping to retain more than we will lose because of that. However, we also know that we will have attrition. We know that we will have people that will leave, but here's what's interesting about our firm. We have more what I call a boomeranger than most any other company, because what will happen is they will have a positive experience, but they want to be able to have more experience from a professional career, which I highly suggest. And so they go to different companies, but then they come back. We always like to say they come back home, and they really kind of spend many more years here because of the experience that they had. So to me, that is a little different slant on just keeping them longitudinally forever and ever. But it is that experience that they have that boomerang back. And that to me is just equally as important. Now, flipping over to kind of not success. So as I mentioned earlier, we provide a lot of services, data and services to manufacturers, retailers alike. And sometimes we mess up. We just do. It's unfortunate. I will tell you that I worked on a client, a very big client, and we had an amazing rapport, a great collaborative partnership. We were really an extension of their team. It was a phenomenal engagement. But we had a big new innovation that just wasn't really working well. But we actually, because of the relationship, they gave us some grace. And they said, you know what? We're going to stay with you. On the flip of that, we had a situation very similar, different solution, but it wasn't a client where we had a good partnership with. And they said, we're leaving. And so the part that it wasn't under my, I will just say it was under my management, but it's an experience that has happened in our firm. And the lesson learned there was that partnership, that building that engagement is so critically important. To connect the two, what I do in the business that I lead, whether you are managing people or you're an employee or it's a customer, it's all about the relationship. How did you make someone feel? How did it make you feel? That part of this is people really won't remember what you did, but they'll remember how you feel. And I think it was Maya Angelou that said that. And it's true. When you think about customer retention, again, I don't care what it is that you do, put that as your North Star and keep that very front and center, because if you do lose one, maybe you'll get it back because they'll remember that you were very good at so many things and this just was an anomaly. Maybe you won't get them back, but they'll still talk fondly about their experience. But then from an employee standpoint, as I mentioned, we've really put that front and center for IRI, and the numbers speak for themselves. We've got tenured people as well as new people, and we're thriving as an organization. So hopefully that was helpful.
I love that. I love that you tied it back to something broader. And we can even just talk about the word retention or the word engagement. And this applies to so many levels. It applies to employee engagement, but it also applies to students in school. Like, some teachers are better at engaging you and making you come back. How many times do you want to not show up to class because it's not engaging? They're not giving you what you want. You may be interested in the subject, but you show up, either your expectations are misaligned, or it's different from what the syllabus said, or it's just the professor doesn't seem like they want to be there. And you can apply that to companies as well, right? So we all have to do kind of our best at being, fully authentic, fully present, and making the experience really worthwhile, because people have choices with their time, with their money. they don't have to be here. So I love that about the feeling, because that is really what drives a lot of the choices that we make as humans. So that's great. Super cool. So I wanted to touch on loyalty programs quickly, because that's something that we all hear about a lot. Like, I think maybe that's how people are first aware that customer retention is a thing that businesses think about. So if both of you can speak to, maybe Brad, you can go first this time, to how you approach loyalty programs, where they fit in your corporate goals, how you incentivize them, how you measure them, et cetera.
Yeah, happy to. You know, we're really proud at Walgreens. We've launched the My Walgreens program probably 4 years ago. In advance of that, we had a balanced rewards program, but in essence, they're both loyalty programs. We've got almost 100 million people engaged. That is incredible from my point of view. When you think about the US population, which is where we do the majority of our business, and the 330 million of folks who reside here, you know, we've got 1 in 3 of those people engaged in our loyalty program. That's pretty impressive. And then I think when you start to even peel that back a bit, it's a real healthy percentage of those folks that we view as being actively engaged, which suggests they're commonly in and out of our stores, they're using our online services, et cetera. But to your very good point, you know, this is all about really helping understand how we can better meet their needs. Of course, we have to have incentives, as you mentioned, to make the program, make the loyalty, make it compelling for them, really important. But then importantly, how can we ensure that as a result of what we receive, that we're then able to more tailor our offerings in a mechanism that makes our organization stronger based on really helping meet their needs. So there's obviously a lot that goes into that. I mentioned some things earlier that are really important in this process, but one of them is, how often do they want to engage with us? Some, it's daily. And what does that engagement look like? As I mentioned, do they want to come in the store and have a conversation? Do they never really want to come in the store, but they want to know that they can have something delivered to their home in a couple of hours? That's not really a service at Walgreens that we provided, 5 years ago, but today we do. And why? Well, because we had to, because the industry is just so disruptive. Folks can kind of get anything they want, from their phone in a matter of minutes. And so we better figure out that quickly. And what we learned about, some important components about our organization is our infrastructure. We have 9,000 points of care across the US, which is pretty good. And people live within a few miles of a store, like better than, 60% of the population or what have you. So we have a pretty decent infrastructure that can enable pretty quick home delivery, which works well, especially when you go through a pandemic and people don't really necessarily want to go into a store where they feel, they might be putting their health at risk, et cetera. Obviously, we're on the other side of that in a lot of ways, which is great, but there are still folks that have completely shifted their, we talk about shifting our ways of working, but people also have shifted their ways of consuming as a consumer. And so as a result, we've got to really leverage our loyalty data to help understand that better, so we can better meet their needs and ensure not only do we remain relevant, but like Sally said, that we thrive into the coming years and decades, because we're 120 years old and we want to be around another 120. And that's obviously really, really difficult in this climate. So, but that's a bit of a sense of how we really leverage this data in a way that I think makes us stronger and, importantly, provides a very compelling offer for our customers and patients.
I love that. That's super clear. Sally, yeah, what's your perspective on the idea of these loyalty programs?
I'm going to come from a whole different angle. So I mentioned that we have a lot of data. So we have big data, right? And if you've ever been part of a program and ever received a message that didn't apply to you, then listen now. And the idea is this, and this isn't, Walgreens is probably one of the best in the industry at what they do. So this is definitely what I'm about to say is not Walgreens by any stretch. But loyalty programs that are put together that don't leverage the information about the customer or the consumer that they may be wanting to target are missing out. And what I meant by my example of, did you ever get a message? So just so you know, I am a mom of 2 boys. They are 18 and 20. For some reason, I still get diaper coupons. They don't need them. They're a little too old for that. And so my point is that particular company, again, not Walgreens, it's totally somebody else, just isn't leveraging the information and mining it to understand how to best get me to walk back into their store. And so what we do is help these companies understand the different types of consumers, the ones that are loyal, the ones that are coming back over and over again. And you want to send them a different message than perhaps the ones that came in, but then they never came back. That's a whole different message than perhaps even ones that are going to a competitor and never walked in your store or bought your product, but depending on what you're going after. And so what we do with our media group is be able to get deterministic audiences, meaning people that have bought the products or the category or the area of interest before, and then being able to do those, be able to come up with audiences that media agencies can send different messages to. So it's really kind of cool because then we can monitor and track whether that message worked or not. And oh, by the way, because of the way everything is so fast these days, we can measure it in flight. Is it working or not? And if not, maybe tweak the message, see if tweaking the message works to try and see if you can't improve your loyalty stat. So we come at it a little differently. IRI doesn't necessarily have a loyalty program, but we do measure our retention, which is where we are with 98%. So we're super proud of that, meaning we retain 98% of our clients, and we're really proud of that. But then from a manufacturer retailer point of view, we can really help making sure that the right message gets to the right person at the right time.
All right, that's a great segue. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I have a ton more I could ask, so I'm going to keep going until I hear anything in chat. But this is a really good segue into AI and other technology that enables you to do things that you were not able to do 20 years ago. So I wonder if you could give one example of a tactic or a program that you're able to do now that you weren't able to do before, and what tool is powering that? And I guess, Brad, you can go first with patrons.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. That's impressive, by the way, 98% retention. Wow, you should be proud of that. I was going to comment, Sally, too, on your culture of the organization with these boomerang population, what have you. That's quite impressive. So I think everything you can do, obviously, to drive that awareness is really critical. Yes, lots of things that we've done. I kind of mentioned the pandemic, but we've really literally had to transform who we are. 120 years of history, and admittedly, we've been, unfortunately, a bit arrogant along the way. We had a strategy that was to find the best intersections and build what we felt was a beautiful store, and people would come to it. And for a lot of years, it was true, and it worked really well. But as I mentioned, based on not only a pandemic, but also just disruption in the industry and things have shifted so much that it's no longer differentiating, I think, to have a great intersection or a great location or what have you. You have to have so much more. And really, what is the so much more? What's compelling that helps folks make the decision when they're driving home from work? Or, as you know, a lot of people don't necessarily go to work, they work from home. So as a result, how do we sort of evolve our model? And you asked what changes we've made specifically. And so for one, just it comes quickly, is curbside pickup. We weren't doing this at all. This is not even something that we ever ventured to imagine we would do. Why? People park in our parking lot, they can come in our store. It's smaller than a big mass merchant. They can get in and out pretty quickly if we're staffed correctly, et cetera, which I can address in a moment, but that's a bit unrelated. But nonetheless, for all of those reasons, we would have never even explored a curbside offering because it just didn't make sense to our business model, in advance of the pandemic. And of course, that had to shift dramatically, not only because of people's safety, but also just because competitively, everybody was responding, and we learned quickly we have got to be part of this. And not only do we have to be part of it to get caught up, but we have to help lead in this space. So we've got technology coming that I'm really excited about that will help patients decide through AI, as you mentioned. I'm going to the Walgreens store now. It's 6 p.m. Google would suggest it's really busy at 6 p.m. So perhaps I can just choose to select home delivery and not even stop at the store, and it will just be at my home at 8 p.m. or whatever that might look like. Or I pull into the drive-through and I see that there are 7 cars. I can select curbside pickup instead of being in the drive-through and just pull into slot number 4, and someone will walk my prescription or my 3 items on the front end or both out to my parking space and whatever. So it's a lot of leveraging technology in ways that we weren't really ever even imagining would be needed very quickly to make sure that we're remaining relevant. So those are a couple of specific examples from my point of view that have really helped us create an even more compelling offer for the patients and consumers we're privileged to be able to offer and support and care for.
Love that. And Sally, if you want to talk to the technology, or someone asked in the chat, Sierra, whether you feel automation helps or hurts you in the face of customers. So, and by you, really businesses in general, however you want to answer that.
Brad, do you want to first answer that from your perspective, and then I'll take.
Sure. Yeah, I think automation helps. You know, there's a couple of ways to think about this. I'll speak to something that's very near and dear to me right now with respect to pharmacy. So, you know, largely what we do, obviously, is we take tablets from a 1,000 vial or a 1,000 count vial into a 100 count vial, and we dispense it to a patient. And then we provide very, very important information for them about that given medication, et cetera. But that whole piece of taking the 1,000 tablets into the 100 can be automated, no doubt about it. It would be more efficient, more accurate, big cost savings. All those things are quite obvious. And so the good news on that front is, as we can leverage automation even more so tomorrow than we do today, then it frees up our people to have more therapeutic conversations with patients about their healthcare. And when we do that, there are new ways that our organization can create revenue streams to innovate and not be commoditized, because really the art of filling a prescription historically has been a professional service, but it's being a bit commoditized based on the payer landscape, et cetera. And so we can automate a lot of that and then enable our people to deliver different levels of healthcare that ultimately create, as I mentioned, new profit streams for organizations. So that's one small example of automation and how it's really helping take a 120-year organization, I keep saying that, and not only keeping us relevant today, but transforming into a more accessible healthcare provider into the days to come.
Oh my gosh, you almost took the words out of my mouth. I was like, it feels like Walgreens is really transformed. So you just did that. And it's impressive because your success speaks to how things are working and the processes are working. I will answer the question from my perspective 2 different ways. And one is this, automation, it depends on what you're automating. So let's just start there, because there are some things that you can automate, but without a human intervention, you lose what's going on around the world, right? There's some times where automation can get you 80%, but you still have to have a human engaging to understand some dynamics that might have been occurring. That's not, so what Brad described is something that's very black and white, where automation hits, but where what we do with information, you can automate a lot. You can use AI to help drive insights, but there's things that might have gone on in a back room, or there's things that might be looming that you need to have that human interaction to complement the automation. So I will say that, but I think in general, automation helps. So I 100% align with Brad, but you just have to be careful on looking at what you're automating and whether or not you need that little push over the goal line with a bit of human interaction based on whatever that was you were automating, or whether it really is black and white and the automation is all you need. It is efficient, it's effective, and it drives that. So I think that's that answer. And then back to new technology. So I did mention we've had a merger. So we merged with a company by the name of NPD. And what that does, and I'm going to speak purely from a food perspective to give this example, we are now able to not only talk about what consumers have purchased, where they've purchased it and why, but then what do they go and do? They go and eat it at their home? Do they eat it outside on the lawn? Do they, or do they go and not purchase and they go to a restaurant to get food or beverages? And so what's really kind of cool about bringing this back to the loyalty piece is, when in the past, we would have definitely put an audience together with a media agency that would have been all around what they purchased. What's really cool now is we can then say, hey, we know that you go and visit the Starbucks down at your corner every single day. what if you were able to save a little bit of money and make the coffee at home? And here's some ways of making that in-home, that have that out-of-home experience in home. And so by doing that, it really does change the game on driving loyalty from a whole different perspective. So.
Love that. Okay, we want to wrap up with closing remarks. We just got one more question in from Jody for Brad. So Brad, if you can just answer that and then give any closing remarks from both of you for students who may be watching this and thinking about their career pathways ahead. You know, we always want to think about growth sectors, growth specialties, you know, what the jobs of the future are going to look like. So if you could just say a few words in closing. Brad, you can go first.
Sure. Yeah, and it's Jody, yeah, that chatted it in. Thank you for that. We have done this a variety of different ways. I'll start with work with vendors that we've partnered with. So Gallup is one group that we worked with years ago on measuring engagement. We shifted to Aon Hewitt after 3 or 5 years, and then now more recently we work with a partner called Glint. And each of them have brought really key insights to our organization based on where we were at the time and what we felt we needed to glean around team member engagement specifically. So you can think back, this was always an interesting one. We would have a question on an engagement survey that would say, do you have a best friend at work? And our people really never knew how to answer it. It was really interesting. Like for me, I was like, of course, yes, I work with these people all the time. And you know, I appreciate their perspective. We have similar experiences or similar hobbies, and then in other cases we have nothing similar, but I still value them for you know, so many things, etc. That for me it was like an easy answer, but I think the piece behind it was, if you feel that you have connections at work. Sally talked about relationships, so important. You know, if there was something that I didn't quite realize as a student that I know now, it's all about connections and relationships. So I was really glad to hear Sally say that. Anyhow, the point is, that was one piece that Gallup felt was very important. And when you could index well on that one small question, it would speak a lot about the culture in an organization and about the engagement in an organization. Since that time, we've, as I mentioned, worked with other organizations. Today, one of the things that we really index well on at Walgreens that I'm proud of is I feel that my voice matters. And that's a key component with Glint that we're working with, because it helps team member empowerment. It helps folks, you know, feel that they're coming to an organization that values them for their thought leadership, that values them for who they are, versus perhaps for their ability to deliver a given task. And we do value that as well, obviously. So we have to value both. So anyhow, the question was specifically, you know, what metrics make up, you know, the ways that we assess engagement? And the answer is, we move that around a lot. It's quite dynamic based on what we believe are our opportunities in our organization. And as a result, how do we go after those opportunities? So hopefully that helps Jody a bit, but in short, it moves around quite a lot based on where we think we are.
I love that. Thank you. And Sally, do you want to give some closing thoughts as well?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Riches and Enactus for putting this together. It's really been an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I would just say this, as you think about your career that you might have, or the one that you're about to embark on, depending on who you are on this call, I do think I go back to customer retention is kind of a relationship endeavor. And just keep that very much point of mind. Treat others as you want to be treated yourself, and you will be able to retain customers time and time again.
I love that. Bringing it back to the basics. That's a perfect way to drop the mic here. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Brad. This is super insightful and also actionable and relatable, because we can all do some of these pieces in whatever part of our life we're in right now, whatever life stage. So thank you, thank you. And if we could advance to the next slide, I just want to close with, first of all, a huge thank you to Riches as well as Regis Corporation. Riches, thank you for being here, Jim. This was amazing to have you. And again, appreciate your engagement with our students. Just wanted to foreshadow to the next one. December 14th. That's on eco business. So as we all know, there's a lot more pressure from all different angles for companies to do more around sustainability. It's among one of the top priorities for consumers right now. And employees also look for that in their employers. They want to work for an organization that cares about environmental sustainability. So we'll send you guys a notice with info on the speakers. But one of the speakers is an Enactus project, an alum, so Spring Back Recycling. So we're excited to feature them next month. So next slide. Oh, sorry, thank you for joining us. No, I wanted to talk about the World Cup. We just finished with our World Cup a couple of weeks ago in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Again, it was like my first few weeks here, so it was amazing. Just wanted to share that Enactus Egypt won. So we're super proud of them. They did an awesome presentation, and wanted to share that the Netherlands will be hosting the following year in 2023. So just wanted to make that announcement that we're all excited for the next year, and we're already planning. So look for more news on Netherlands 2023 coming into your inbox. So that's all I've got. Thank you. And we can close out. And thank you, Sally and Brad, once again for all of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.